Hello, and welcome back to the #1 survival guide of the Cylinder. And today, for the first time ever, we shall sail to the island of Nalean to explore its vast coastal forests and rainforests. You docked your ship and walked up the hill further inland. You are now in the jungle. After a while of taking in the wet jungle air, you spotted your first creature. It was a cloud beetle. The cloud beetle is a species of very large Hercules beetle that spends most of its time high up in the trees, or, in other words, the jungle canopy. In fact, their life cycle even greatly depends on trees. As the very first larval stage of this creature's life cycle starts off with a female laying its eggs in between the bark of a tree, where it will then incubate into a large grub that will eat the inside of the tree as well as any other insects dwelling inside, making them an extremely valuable target for large birds. Also, an important thing to mention is that most Hercules beetles do not possess the ability to fly, nor their wings. However, cloud beetles do. However, they do not possess the ability to fly, just their wings. And they mainly use it as a display structure, but they can also use it as an intimidation tactic against potential predators. You walked down the hill into a lower part of the jungle, and was hit in the face by a wall of fog and condensation, almost impossible to even breathe in. And inside this mist was a large grove of terracotta bamboo. Further in the distance, you noticed a small primate clinging to a palm tree, eating a large hanging clump of red figs. It was a fig troll. Fig trolls are omnivores. They primarily eat fruits, such as figs, bananas, and other such things, but they are also known to eat some insects, including cloud beetle larvae. But the main thing that fig trolls are known for is that they steal food from other animals, such as stealing bird eggs, and even stealing food from other primates. And because of that, some nearby cultures named this creature Argratir, which, when roughly translated into English, means trickster spirit. About a half mile away, you faintly heard the sound of bird wings flapping in the distance. It was a peacock parrot landing in a tree. They are called such as their plumage greatly resembles peacock feathers, both in color scheme and shape. Speaking of its plumage, it has two large bunches of whisker-like feathers around its face that it uses to sense heartbeats of insects inside of trees, where it will then use its incredibly sharp, axe-shaped beak to strike at the wood until eventually they can grab the insects within. You eventually came to a forest clearing, where you noticed a large head made out of clay, as well as a large clay dish in the middle, filled with bamboo leaves. This was a sacrificial site. You suddenly noticed a large gray face peeking out of the bamboo that looked remarkably similar to the face that you saw etched into the clay earlier. It was a crimson-maned bamboo giant. As you would think, the bamboo giant mainly eats bamboo. And seeing as how bamboo is extremely hard to break down with stomach acid, this creature possesses 4 stomachs that it uses to digest its food much more smoothly. And because of that, whenever they poop, their droppings are extremely fibrous and thick. And oftentimes, when bamboo giants are younger, they do not possess the same amount of power in their stomach contents to allow them to break down bamboo as easily, which oftentimes means that the elders of the group must feed the children their droppings, as they provide a nutrient-rich and easy way to digest bamboo. However, their droppings are also extremely valuable for house building, as when you mix a little bit of clay into their droppings, it becomes an extremely malleable material, and once dried, becomes an extremely valuable adhesive. And once the first tribes of Naleans learned of this, they began to build their villages out of their droppings, which was a problem for them, as they needed that to feed their children. And so, many adult bamboo giants began to storm their villages and destroy their houses. And so, the Naleans made a deal with the giants, that they would give them extra bamboo, that would cause them to make even more droppings, that they could use for their houses, while still leaving enough for their children to eat. And all the way up until today, they still used that same deal. You eventually made your way out of the bamboo grove, and found yourself in a much deeper area of the jungle, with a lot more biodiversity in its plant species. But after a while of taking in the tranquil sounds of the jungle, you then began to hear the abrupt noise of creaking, cracking, and rustling deeper in the forest. Suddenly, a family of large, pig-like creatures burst from the tree line, and seemingly not even noticing you, began running even deeper into the jungle. They were rhino peccaries, a species of large pig, known for its immense strength and aggressiveness. However, they are also very social, and live in large family units that scour the jungle floor for food, such as mushrooms, fruit, fallen bird eggs, insects, various herbs, small mammals, and other such things. And it is also known that young males who have not yet established a family commonly fight over resources or even potential mates, explaining their large horns and extremely large tusks. You didn't dare move for a while, as you didn't know if more pigs would be coming through the trees. But after a while, you began to wonder what caused those pigs to run like that. And as you did, you noticed a feline face peeking at you through the underbrush. It was a mango tiger. Mango tigers are some of the most efficient hunters in these woods, other than the apex predator. And the mango tiger's primary food source just so happens to be young rhino peccary. But the rest of their diet includes fig trolls, peacock parrots, and cloud beetles, as this feline can actually climb trees and is able to get to these prey items. You continued walking through the jungle for a good long while, until eventually you began to hear the sound of rushing water far away, as you began to approach a river. One of the first things you noticed as you approached the water was a strange-looking crustacean sitting on the beach. It was a leaf crab. The leaf crab has extremely dexterous arms that it can use to pick up anything, pretty much. That it can use to pick up and eat anything, such as moss, plant leaves, fruit, animal eggs, and dead animals. As the leaf crab is an omnivore, but it is also a scavenger, and so it will eat pretty much any dead thing sitting on the jungle floor. You eventually broke away from the jungle and began climbing up a cliff, where you eventually realized that the cliff was lit up with orange light. As you did, you looked back towards the ocean and saw the sun setting. It was the dreaded leopard dragon. Leopard dragons make their nests high up in mountain cliffs and fly down to the forests at night to hunt. As for what they eat, their main food is baby bamboo giants, as well as rhino peccary. However, they aren't that picky and will eat pretty much anything in the forest as long as it's large enough for them to concern themselves with it. Leopard dragons also primarily use stealth when hunting, and use the abundance of foliage in their environment to their advantage, to cover their bodies while hunting. As for their breath weapon, it has evolved into an extremely pinpoint accurate and almost no noise-making weapon that travelers often say look remarkably similar to fire arrows. And a well-placed hit from one of these fire darts can kill almost any animal, including you. And that now brings us to the end of this chapter of the survival guide.